a Hezbollah drone struck Netanyahu's private residence. And can you tell us a little bit how significant this is? Because from my understanding, this drone actually it flew by a IDF helicopter even and had a direct hit on his residence. Netanyahu
Oh,
wasn't there, but maybe this was more of a signal to just say that, hey, we can strike you, and that really the Iron Dome has become the Iron Sieve. Anything seems to be able to get through right now. So let me hear your take on what this incident was all about.
okay. Well, I'll throw something out here. I'm not a really a conspiracy theory and false flag kind of guy.
That's my
I,
job.
I generally reject those kind of explanations, or out of hand, or maybe not out of hand, because I know those things do happen, right? But I'm reluctant to go to those kind of explanations. But when this happened, I thought this could be a false flag. And okay, maybe it's already been demonstrated that it wasn't. Maybe there's really solid data that shows the drones being launched in Hezbollah controlled territory, and you can follow the flight path all the way to Netanyahu's home. So perhaps this, you can shoot this idea down completely. But it just seems to me that first of all, it really is something that probably clearly, immediately after it happened, Netanyahu was shown outside, being, brave, walking outside and, calm, collected. And then he was able to project an image of strength, maybe to counter that previous image of him running through the tunnels when the Iranian missiles were on their way. And then they very quickly pinned it on Iran, or they said, okay, it was Hezbollah, but Iran was behind it. And then I'm just, I think of the recent stories about Iranian plots to assassinate Trump. And even the idea that was floated out there that maybe Iran was behind the attempted assassination in Butler, Pennsylvania. So it just seems to me that this is something that the enemies of Iran would actually like to have happen, and it would also help them to justify, not that they really need it, but it would still help to justify, let's say, an assassination of an Iranian leader. So anyway, that's just something that immediately came to mind. But and it seems like it might be actually pretty easy to pull off if you can, you control the drones. Maybe that's one reason why the helicopter just flew by. They told them, don't mess with this drone. We want it to
Yeah.
hit its target or something. So I actually think it's possible that it's a false flag. Again, Israel has a history of committing false flags. Actually, the U.S. does too. But, we can think of the major false flag incidents staged by Israel. Would be the Lavon affair, I think, in 1956. And then, of course, there was the USS Liberty. We don't know exactly what happened, but the most convincing explanation was that it was an attempted false flag. So I think we have to consider that. Now, okay, maybe Hezbollah really did either send a signal or even maybe attempt to assassinate Netanyahu. It hasn't been let's say,
Modus
their
operandi.
approach. That's just not the way they have done things so far. They really have limited their targets to military targets. But certainly, like in the greater scheme of things, looking at it abstractly, it would be hard to say that, oh, these people are savages after everything that Israel's done. They have a kind of if you apply, if they would be fully justified in trying to attempt to assassinate him. Now, I don't think that maybe again that would be it's contrary to their previous practice. But the other possibility, as you say, it was just sort of a demonstration of the weakness of the Iron Dome. Perhaps that's another thing. Those are all possibilities.
Right. So if it was a false flag, it's maybe to use to justify a potential attack on, there's a lot of talk about taking out the Ayatollah in Iran. Do you think
Right.
that's a potential
Exactly.
target, that's what they want to do and say, like, well, now I try to get Netanyahu. But at the same
Right.
time, it's a double-edged sword. Okay, maybe you can use this to add it to your propaganda to justify the assassination of the supreme leader of Iran, the Ayatollah. But at the same time, it shows that you are weak. Domestically, your country is unprotected. Your air defense systems weren't able to intercept a drone that was targeting Netanyahu's, the prime minister's residence. If you can't protect the prime minister's residence, then you can't protect anything. And there was also a drone that struck the cafeteria of a army camp base and killed 4 soldiers, injured 68 outside of Haifa. Of course, that's closer to the southern Lebanon border. You said it would seem to be a bit more of an advanced drone that fired something, a missile, and then kamikaze.
Subsequently, I heard other explanations that there was a swarm of drones, and that that overwhelmed the defenses in the area. I don't know exactly what they did. And then another explanation was that it was a composite drone, meaning that was one that was less detectable by radar. Who knows? Maybe it's all of those things.
Have you heard any other analysts come up with this theory of a false flag as well, or is this a dad original?
This is a dad original, and nobody else is. Maybe it's actually just completely false, and they already know that it had to come from Hezbollah control. But I haven't seen that evidence presented. So I just, because especially just in light of all these weird accusations about Iranian involvement in assassination plots against Trump.
Right.
It seems like there's something afoot here, like they're trying to create a narrative. And so I think it's quite possible. We'll just say, who knows? You never. We can only speculate, but I think it's quite possible.
Right. Yeah, no, it makes sense. I mean, because you hear all these stories as well about Iran supplying Russia with missiles, these assassination attempts on Trump. It just seems like they're constantly trying to drum up something that Iran is just this mastermind behind the whole world.
Right. It's actually been going on for years, decades, but it's intensifying now. Another thing is that, to my knowledge, Hezbollah, hasn't claimed credit for this. They have said nothing about it.
And that's not typical of them, right?
Right. They're actually generally really quite transparent. Yeah.